Hey, it's me, Polly. So, I posted that one video about, how I identified a girl named Michelle Garvey, who disappeared from Connecticut in 1982, and I think it was 1982, and how she was found a month later deceased in Texas, and how I identified her after 30 years. Well, there was a second case that, while I don't have confirmation of the solution, I'm pretty sure I also solved it, and it's actually a much bigger case in a way. And like I said, I don't have the confirmation that it's solved, but I'm pretty sure that it's right, and in a way, it's fascinating. It's another really sad case. Another 14-year-old child, a boy this time, who disappeared from Norfolk, Virginia in 1973. He was at the school bus stop the last time anybody saw him, waiting for the bus in the morning to take him to school, and he just disappeared. Nobody ever heard from him again. His name was Darren Hillis, and like I said, he was just a 14-year-old boy, just a kid. Well, I have reason to believe that Darren was abducted by a serial killer, a serial pedophile, rapist, sadistic torturer, a worm by the name of Dean Corll, who actually lived in Houston, Texas, but was just made his way to different states during a 4-month absent period from Texas, during a 4-month period of time where he seemed to be dormant, but he is connected to a boy. A picture was found of this boy, a Polaroid photo was found of this boy just a couple of years ago, like 2 to 3 years ago. And the photo, the Polaroid photo, showed this young boy strapped to a board that was known to belong to Dean Corll, to have been created by Dean Corll. It had handcuffs attached to both ends, and I think he called it his torture board. This boy, this young boy, was seen handcuffed to one end of that board and crying, terrified. And the boy not only bore great resemblance to Darren Hillis, was missing at the same time that Darren Hillis, or was present at the same time that Darren Hillis was missing, but was also wearing red pants with white stripes, just as Darren Hillis had been known to have been wearing the day he went missing. So I actually think that I've solved that case. Well, in terms of IDing the boy. And the interesting thing about that is that every other boy, Dean Corll was mostly interested in teenage boys, roughly teenage boys, and he was interested in sodomizing them and torturing them and just destroying them. And he he actually did that until he was killed by his accomplice in August of 1973. But like I was saying, the thing about him is that he lived in the Houston Heights area, and he moved around a lot to different homes, and I believe it was probably an offensive measure to make sure that he stayed ahead of anybody who might become suspicious of him. So he moved from home to home quite a bit in between 1970 and 1973. But he had but he had two boys who would procure his victims. Two young boys, teenage boys, who would bring their friends or their classmates over, and they'd end up becoming victims of Corll, and then those accomplices would help him bury the bodies of those boys. Everything about the case was just tragic. It's terrible. It's unimaginable. The thing about Darren is that he was the only boy not known to have lived or have been passing through Houston. He had no connection with Houston as far as we know. I think that in 1973, during a time when both of the accomplices were kind of trying to get away from Corll, Corll was on his own, and during that 4-month absent period, I think he was traveling. He had his van outfitted as a torture mobile, and I think he took his nightmare freak show on the road and abducted boys in other states. And I think he abducted Darren Hillis from the bus stop that morning. And his body was never found. Many of the bodies were dug up of the previous boys. But there were still some that they knew where the boys were buried based on what the accomplices told them, yet they refused to dig them up. There are still bodies buried in the very graves that were dug by their killer, which I think is terribly wrong, terribly sad, and it keeps them victims forever, and they can't be buried by their families, their loved ones. But there's a whole story pertaining to that, about how the Houston police failed to do their job at all. They would not take missing reports for those boys. They just kept telling the parents of these missing boys, who went missing 1 or 2 a week sometimes, that they just ran away. They just ran away. So when all of these bodies start being unearthed, of all these boys whose parents had reported them missing, the cops didn't want to make a big deal out of it, because they blew it. They blew it bad. So eventually they just quit digging them up anymore. They actually ended up with a higher body count than the previous record-holding murderer. And after that, they didn't want to dig up any more bodies, because it's more bad publicity. To this day, those remaining boys, are still buried where their killer hid them. And Darren, I have a feeling he was buried somewhere on the road, probably, to make room for another boy to have been picked up and murdered. But I don't know for sure. I know that the Polaroid photo of this boy is definitely connected to Corll, because it was found amongst the belongings of one of Corll's accomplices. And I know that the boy in the photo looks like Darren Hillis, is wearing the pants that Darren Hillis was described as wearing, and disappeared, and was found during the time that he would have disappeared. So it's a huge thing to have actual documented evidence that Dean Corll did travel around and abduct boys from other states. So, anyway, I have that. That was printed in the Northern Express Northern Express newspaper. That story was. So, and just today, I got an email from the author, the writer of that article that came out about me in the Northern Express. And he forwarded an email from a woman whose sister went missing in 1990. So I think they're probably hoping that I can help. And to tell you the truth, I'm hoping that I can too. I'm a little afraid, maybe a lot afraid, that I won't be able to do anything to help them. And I want to help them so badly. I hope I can. I really do hope I can. I feel like this is my calling. I hope it is. I feel like it is. And I want to be good at it, and I want to help bring peace to these people who are just suffering so much. Find answers. Speak out as the voice. Be a voice for their missing sister, daughter. That would be something that, I could find pride in. I could find meaning in. So, I guess I'm getting pretty sleepy, so I will continue at a later date. But I've got to put my head down on the pillow now, and I'm starting to become very, very tired. So, anyway, my best to everybody out there, and I love you guys as always, and I'll hopefully be speaking with you again soon. And if you comment, check back in the because I'll probably respond in the same section where you left your comments. I'm using Apple devices, and they're a little tricky to use on YouTube, so I don't have the same reply options as other people. But just check back, and I'll see if I can't respond, at least by just adding a comment myself. So anyway, good night, and I will talk to you soon.